As I mentioned last week, today we have a guest from Intouch, a company from the retail media space. Seamus is the sales director here and is here to talk about retail media, what it is, what Intouch does, and a lot more. Seamus, thank you for being here. Our viewers and listeners have been hearing about retail media over the last year. For the benefit of our audience, can you explain what retail media is and what Intouch does? Maybe start with an introduction of yourself, and then let's talk about retail media and what Intouch does.
Sure. Thank you, Vina. Thank you for inviting us on to today's podcast. So, as you said, Seamus is my name. I'm the retail sales director for Intouch. Myself, I've got over 20 years experience in retail technology, primarily, let's say, in point of sale and self-checkout and in the payments industry. And in the last 4 years since joining Intouch, it's very much moved into the area of retail media networks and AI and computer vision and helping retailers really being able to get close to their target audience and being able to engage with the shoppers inside the store in a lot better and a lot more targeted manner. So Intouch as a company, where our head office is in Dublin in Ireland. However, we now have offices in Egypt, in the Netherlands, in Canada, in the US, and in Mexico. And what we have done, we have developed a software solution. It's a two-sided retail media network that, in a very simplistic manner, it allows retailers to target the shoppers inside their store with their own offerings, whether it be promotions or products or just information they would like to share with their consumers. And the second element is where the FMCG brands can actually use that same in-store network so that they can actually engage and target with the consumers as they enter and walk around the retail stores of the retailer.
Got it. And I saw on your website that the messaging to consumers inside the store is very targeted. So, how would that work if there were, let's say, 5 different people who are viewing the same screen and you have all of those 5 from different backgrounds?
Yeah, so how it works, it can work in many different ways, Vina, but if you take your example, we would call that anonymized personalization. And what we do is that we consider a number of different data points in order to decide in real time what should be shown on the screen as per your example. So for argument's sake, we look at the time of day, the day of week, we know the weather. We have cameras inside the store that's able to estimate the dominant age and shoppers of the people who are inside the store. From a GDPR perspective, it has to be a minimum of 4 people, so we don't target it to a specific person because that actually would not be fully compliant. So what we do is that, and we also have access to the point of sales data, so we know the types of products or indeed the categories of products that are actually trending, i.e. they are being sold significantly through the checkout at this point in time. So when you pull all those information points together, the ads are changing every 10 seconds. So every 10 seconds on each screen inside the store, the system is making a very educated and an AI-driven assumption as to what product it should promote on the screen at that given time. And then it does the same calculation 10 seconds later, and then continues on throughout the day.
Got it. And so, would it then do ads of different products if you have the same few people watching the screens for, let's say, a minute? Would that basically be 6 different ads of products, or will it just be the same ad for?
Yeah. So again, I would suggest that it's many different products, and ultimately that's decided by how many products the retailer has, I suppose, uploaded into the system. Because the more products you have, the greater pool of data that we can pull from to determine what products are most relevant at this exact point in time. So, for example, the big challenge with any sort of digital display inside retail stores has been that real barrier to having significant content that's relevant over a prolonged period of time and that can be changed dynamically inside the store. So retailers have struggled over many, many years with having the ability to keep the content fresh inside, let's say, traditional CMS platforms inside the store. So what our platform does is we have this module called product catalog ads where we can link directly into the retailer's database so that we can, in theory, select from thousands of products at any given point in time, should the system believe that that's the most sort of relevant product to choose from right now, from the retailer's perspective. And then the second element, when we talked about the two-sided retail media network, the second part is obviously the advertised products. So the more products that you have waiting to be queued to be advertised, you can also select from them as to which one you believe is the most relevant to choose at that given point in time as well.
Got it. Okay. And I'm assuming that for this, you would need some sort of data sets from the retailer to integrate with. You mentioned that you work with their point of sale data. What other data sources do you need to sort of work efficiently with this?
Yeah, so the way that the system has been developed, again, it's all developed and designed in-house from the Intouch engineering team. So we have done it in multiple layers. So the retailer can start with us with actually no integrations. So we can actually start working with a retailer with zero integrations, and that allows them to better understand the true impact that we at InTouch and our solution can bring to their business. Once they understand that, and we have verified the numbers, and they understand that by displaying the correct product on the screen, we can increase sales, or by having the ability for the advertisers to promote their products on their screen, and they can see that this is a net new revenue stream for their business. We can then, let's say, roll it out to more of their stores, and we can integrate more deeply into their system. So the POS is one way that we can do that. So we could do a direct integration, or what some of our retailers do is that they can actually send automated sales data to us at a predefined period. So that could be every day, it could be every second day. So you don't even necessarily have to have that direct one-to-one integration, which can be quite time-consuming and really expensive to the retailer to do as well. But the collection of the other data, Vina, is very much down to InTouch. So we have a media player installed beside each screen inside the store location. That's connected to our InTouch Live portal, if you like. And by doing that there, we have the GPS coordinates of every location, and that's how we know at any store the time of day, the day of week, the weather. We're now launching new data input modules, the likes of the traffic that's happening nearby. Is there events that's happening nearby the store? But that's all configured based on the GPS location of the store, which is controlled from the media player that we install and store the site. And what the camera that I talked about earlier, that's also connected to the media player, and that's how we're able to estimate the dominant age and gender of the shoppers who are inside the store as well.
Got it. Okay. Okay. That So I'd like to dig a little deeper into something you mentioned like early on in the conversation around being able to put this in place without any integration. Now, I'm sure that a lot of the retailers who are listening to this are going to be very excited by that. Can you tell me a little bit more about how that sort of part of it would work? How exactly would you put this in place without integrations? Because I'm sure you'll need the data from them to get this up and
Yeah.
running, right?
Yeah, so that's very true. And I think ultimately it comes down to what the retailer is looking to get out of this. So, as you know, every retailer is different. Every retail market has their own little nuances as well. So we have retailers that work with us, and their sole requirement, if you like, is advertising. So they use the screen completely as a as an in-store retail media network to allow the brands to advertise on their platform. So from that perspective, they're not as let's say really caring about the ability to integrate into their sales information, because it's the brands that are promoting their product. So in that particular instance, we have the agencies or we have the FMCG brands that directly log into our platform. They upload the creatives, they upload the campaign information, and once it's been verified by the retailer and the InTouch moderation team, that then goes live on the network, and it runs for whatever length of time the brands have paid for it to run. It could be for 1 week, could be 2 weeks, could be for 1 month, whatever length of time it is. So from that perspective, there's practically zero integration required. Once we have the screens in the store connected with power, obviously, and connected to the internet, they can work quite seamlessly. You can then skip it over to the other side, where you might have retailers that are much more interested in promoting their own products than on the advertising piece. And that might be retailers that have maybe more in-house brands and less of the actual main brands that we would be aware of. So from that perspective, you're correct. There is a necessity for the retailer to provide the information about the products that's shown on the screen. So again, there is a portal that they can log into, that they can upload all of the creatives that they might have generated in-house. They may have an agency that does that there. We at InTouch have an actual arm that can assist in the creation of content on the screen as well. And that's just simply loaded up onto the portal. They select, let's say, the stores. They may have certain targeting criteria they want to use. They can do all of that through the InTouch Live portal, and they send it down to the screen. So that can work as well in a quite simplistic manner. Whenever you get into then, like I talked earlier about the product catalog ads, whereby InTouch has the ability to dynamically create hundreds, if not thousands, of content at scale on the fly, then we do have to be integrated into their system to have access to that. And that's a body of work that our IT team can do, just using simple APIs into the retailer's back office can do that. That's quite easy once it's all set up. And then the sharing of the sales data. So again, retailers are very protective of their data, understandably so. And we're quite happy that we can work with them in a number of different manners as to how we receive that sales data. So we can have a direct integration into the POS system. So in real time, we can see what's happening at the system. Or like I talked about earlier, they may just be more content to have an FTP server and they send the data to us on a nightly basis, as an example. So again, depending on how the retailer wants to work it, our system has been developed to be really flexible, to be able to integrate in a very light touch way, or a really deep integration.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense. And that's probably one of the reasons why a lot of retailers have chosen to develop in-house solutions for retail media, the aspect of integration and data sharing and that sort of thing. And keeping that in mind, there's always a sort of, I would almost call it a tug of war between companies wanting to develop in-house solutions for some of their problems and buying technology that other vendors have created and installing it in-house. Now, I've worked within some of these companies as well, and as a previous employee who used to work in the segment, I've seen that a lot of the times when you get an outside software solution, it works a lot better, especially if it's maintained by the external provider, because then updates are quick. You don't have to work on looking at what's happening around and then updating the software yourself. Someone else is doing that, and it seamlessly flows through. So that's sort of one example. But what are the sort of other benefits of using an external provider than developing this in-house, if we sort of take out the extremely high upfront cost of developing the solution versus just buying it from someone else?
Yeah, well, I suppose you can't really just take it out, because it is a huge reason why people and retailers in particular, perhaps, I would be advising them not to go ahead and just buy to build their own, because the costs can be quite astronomical. I think the other point, Vina, is actually time. So if you think about it, InTouch has been on this journey now for over 6 years. So we are already 6 years ahead. If you were a retail organization, Vina, and you made the decision today that you wanted to create your own in-house retail media network, you're going to be starting from a very blank piece of paper. So we're 6 years ahead of you. Whereas if you had a different ideology and you decided to work with InTouch, you're already 6 years ahead of where you would be if you did it yourself. So that's just one very quick example. I think the other example is that we work with retailers currently across 3 different continents. And whilst we have retailers in different geographical locations in different continents, the actual challenges that they all face are really, really similar, because they're selling to the same type of consumers, they're selling the same type of products, and they're working in the same type of environments. So we now, based on how our technology has evolved in the last 6 years and the innovative enhancements that we have added to the platform, are all done based on the feedback that we get from our retailers, and indeed based on our own learnings and our own understandings as to how this retail media network works. Because if you even take a step back, retail media networks, by its very definition, is any sort of digital touch point the retailer has with their target audience. So that could be in store, it could be online, it could be through a digital app, it could be through their loyalty platform. There's so many different ways. So to become an expert overnight in all of them is really, really complicated. And we at Intouch, we don't even pretend that we're an expert in all of those different touch points, because we're not. So where we see the benefit of where Intouch fits in, we're very much engrossed in that in-store network. So the ASN element of that sort of wider retail media network. And we would see this space being very much, sorry,
Quick one, Seamus. What is ASN?
so ISN, it's in-store networks. So it's an
Oh, right,
in-store
ISN.
retail
Okay.
media
Yeah.
network. So
Okay.
that's where we would see the InTouch advantage. And so we would even see, when you took the wider retail media network, as being, I suppose, a coalition of experts, if you like, and an ecosystem of having different. So we have partnered with different entities who would specialize perhaps in the online element, or in the loyalty app, or in the self-scanning devices. And we very much are central to the in-store network, if you like. Okay, so go back to your original question. If you think about it, so if the retailer wants to develop their own, we already have that 6-year experience of the in-store network, but there's a lot of factors at play here. So yes, you have the technology to understand what's happening inside the store, and we talked about connecting to the point of sale system and the back office. But the other key part here is that ability for the brands or the agencies to be able to promote their products or create their campaigns, and for that to work really seamlessly with the in-house promotions as well. So a lot of retailers may have their own in-store content management system, but then suddenly if you've got brands and agencies looking to launch their campaigns in the same network, it gets really complicated. Whereas within our application, we have come from it with a complete ideology. This is how it should work. So that both platforms, whilst they're the same in-store network, you have two different, very different ways as to how they work. And how we have developed it as well, Vina, is if you think about it, let's just say an example where a retailer had 60% of the available inventory on the screens open to the advertisers and 40% for in-house campaigns. Let's just say, for example, there happened to be a day or a week or a period of time where all of the advertising wasn't sold for whatever reason. In our platform, that inventory, rather than it going to waste, is immediately sort of brought back into the retailer's portion so they can utilize that there. So we're actually maximizing every single available inventory slot in the network, which most other networks, if you're doing it yourself, you can't do, because it's very, this is for the in-store and that's for the advertisements. And if they don't take care of that, then it doesn't get used. And then the other part of that is, when it comes to the advertising piece, because we're able to connect in with the programmatic, like the DSPs, we would consider we're the SSP with the supply side programmatic advertising, you got display side programmatic advertising. We can connect into these networks so that we're able to, again, if the advertisements have not been sold, we can then open it up to the programmatic advertisers so that they can come in and buy it, maybe with maybe 4 or 5 days to go. So at all times, you're looking to all the time, always looking to optimize the available inventory on the network, and not letting it go to waste. Because whilst it's content on a screen, in theory, it is perishable, because whatever you don't sell today, you can't sell tomorrow because it's gone. So at all times, just trying to make sure that we are maximizing the ad from either from an in-house perspective or from an advertiser's perspective, and you're getting enough revenue as you would expect to get from the advertiser's piece.
Got it. That totally makes sense. What about the cost element? Is there a rationale as to why someone should buy from you instead of developing this in-house? I'm pretty sure there's a cost element advantage as well.
Yeah, for sure there is. And again, that whole adage of, can we do it better ourselves? I mean, people could argue that maybe they could, but the cost is going to be really, really significant. So, like I said, we're at this 6 years. We've got a full development team that has been enhancing this and creating this from scratch, and that has develop new enhancements and new modules based on what's happening in the network. Because what's really interesting about this space, Vina, is that it's evolving so fast. And what you want to develop for today's market will probably not be suitable for what's ready in 6 months' time. Never mind a year's time or 12 months' time. So by having, let's say, experts on your side, i.e., the Intouch team, who are every single day engrossed in what's happening in the market, taking learnings, not just from the retailers, but also from the brands and the agencies and the advertisers across many different markets, across many different continents, it ensures that you're going to have the feature that you need not just for today, but you're going to have the features for tomorrow and the next day and the next month there as well. So you have that initial cost for sure, but I think what you perhaps could be missing out on by doing it yourself is that um, external understanding of the marketplace that's evolving so fast, and that idea of having people who are always at the forefront of the technology innovation space, bringing that technology to your teams.
Got it. A question. How easily do your potential customers or customers understand that aspect of developing something in-house versus buying something from the outside? Is this something that you need to explain to them, or is this something that they easily get?
I think it's a mix of both. I mean, I think you'll have a portion of retailers who will initially believe they could and should do it themselves. I think, and that's completely understandable. You know, if you're a large organization and you have significant revenues every year and you've got IT teams, that idea of, well, why should we pay money to somebody else? You have to question that. I completely get that. But I think once we sit down with them and we show them what we've got and we show them where we're going with the roadmap and we show them our expertise in this field, I think they then understand why they should work with Intouch. And you have other retailers that perhaps have uh, had maybe similar experiences with other technology innovations in the past, where they maybe have gone down the route of developing it themselves, and maybe the end result wasn't what they expected, and they now understand that actually there is these very innovative startup or scale-up companies out there that are experts in what they do. So if we partner with them, we get quicker to market, we get return much faster, we can actually work with them to shape the technology for your own business anyway. So you're getting all the benefits of what you're doing it yourself, but you're getting it faster. So you're going to make more money quicker. So the returns is immediately better.
Got it. Got it. That makes total sense. Now I'm going off subject, or it's within the subject, but slightly different path. So I was recently at Detroit Airport, and there is this amazing functionality where you scan your boarding pass and you connect your app to your scanner, and you use your phone. That's where the app is. And if you look at screens in the airport, it basically shows you just information on your flight. Now, that's a sort of technology that really enables companies to create really personalized ads. Now, I'm sure it's not really permissible in the GDPR environment, but do you see yourself ever implementing something like that within your business in countries where the GDPR requirement isn't a must?
So it's a really interesting example, Vina, and so we can do it today, and we can do it through loyalty apps, because within the loyalty sign up form, let's say, the opportunity there for the consumer to opt in to receive personalized in-store notifications can
Ah,
be
so it is
asked, and
compliant. Yeah.
exactly. So, and
Yeah.
the consumer can choose to accept them or not. So in
Yeah.
your example, that exact same, or that, I suppose, a similar experience can happen today in a retail environment. So you could be a shopper of a particular retailer, you could have their loyalty app, you could have opted in to receive in-store messaging or in-store notifications. And as you enter the store, we can get really personalized. Hi, Vina, welcome back. It's Monday afternoon. Don't forget, on special offer today, we have product, whatever it might be, because we know that based on your previous historical shopping patterns, that those products are something that you would likely to purchase. Or maybe if you haven't purchased them, using that sort of the Amazon example, whereby um, shoppers similar to you have opted in to purchase these products. So we're giving you recommendations of alternative products that you may, or alternative categories of products that you may not have purchased in the past. Um, and that's very much personalized to you using the app. Or indeed, what we have done, we've partnered with a Dutch company called Revision, who do self-scanning. They're the global leader in self-scanning. So that ability is also available as you shop and scan with your own device. It could be your mobile phone, or it could be the device that the retailer has. And as you shop and scan your products during your journey, we have an understanding as to what's in your basket right now. So we can offer you personalized recommendations based on what you have, or like I said, based on what other shoppers who had bought similar products also purchased. so that this is sort of assisting you with alternative options that you may not have considered had those recommendations not come on the screen. So that's really advantageous for three reasons. A, the consumers really like it because you're actually adding to their shopping journey, and it's done in a very non-intrusive manner. We're not going to start promoting stuff that's got no relevance to what you're doing. It has to be very tied into what you're doing, and the system has to believe that this is something you'd be interested in. So the consumers generally are really interested in that. The retailer is very happy because you're then looking to cross sell other products inside the store. But it also gives the brands, the FMCG brands, now a new way of engaging with their target audience based on what they've got in their basket. So it's also a new way to target and promote and to offer your product to consumers as well inside the store.
Yeah, that makes total sense, because if we sort of look at the way traditional advertising was done, it was done on TV, billboards, magazines. One, it's we these days we use Netflix, Amazon Prime, and we don't always want to see ads on there. Yes,
Yeah.
I think in the US they trialed doing ads on Netflix. I'm not sure how well that's going, but the reason why people moved to the space was because they did not want to see ads.
Yeah.
I remember a time when ads were shown on TV and we had like 15 minutes of watching something and then you'd have a 10-minute ad break.
Yeah.
It was just
Yeah.
so frustrating. But now when you do these ads in store, you're just in a much more receptive frame of mind, because you're there to buy something. And when you see an ad, you just go, okay, I needed that. This is great. I would switch brands to buy this because they're offering me better value, especially in today's inflationary environment, or even if there's something new in market that's offering a slightly different proposition. Consumers want to know, shoppers want to know, so they don't find it intrusive. In fact, they would willingly sign up for this. So that's sort of something that you can help brands and retailers take advantage of, because there is a direct ROI associated with it. You can measure it really easily and go, okay, I pay so much for Intouch, but the result is that my sales have increased by X%.
Yeah, no, I think it's really interesting. So, just some of the stats, like the retail media networks are expected to grow to over 100 billion by 2026. And the reason, and it's, I'm just looking at some stats here, so like they're growing at 25% annually. And the reason that that's happening, I mean, you make a very good example around TV as a traditional media, let's say, and the brands that normally advertise that are looking for new ways. What's really interesting as well, Vina, is that brands that advertise even on new digital formats such as Google or Facebook or YouTube or the likes of that there. Well, obviously we're moving to this like cookieless environment now where you can't track across different apps with the Apple privacy updates. So you have a lot of brands that had up until very, very recently had massive budgets set aside to advertise on these digital platforms because they were able to get really good insights and really good understanding, and they could target their audience really, really well. That's now not the case anymore. So these digital marketing teams are now trying to understand, okay, I have this budget. I'm not getting the same return if I do advertise on these digital channels online. Whereas if I move it now to this in-store digital channel, my targeting can be really, really good. I can immediately measure the true impact from a sales perspective. So they're able to have this sort of incremental return on ad spend that they never had before. So it's to some degree, it's the holy grail for the advertisers, whereas they can target the consumers. They can do it by, like we talked about, demographics, the time of day, the location. There's so many ways that you can target them, but they know that based on the spend of whatever dollars they spent on that campaign for that duration of time, they can measure that the return on ad spend for that. And as long as it's incremental and they know that it's also about building brand awareness, that's why there's such this massive shift
Yeah.
to retail media networks from not just traditional media, but also from digital media, or from digital media as well.
Yeah, totally. That makes sense. Now, this is something that we blogged about, or we are blogging about this week. So we were looking at retail media and how this fits in with advertisers and reaching consumers, or reaching new types of consumers. And a section that McKinsey had recently written about is commerce media. Now, I know we sort of touched on this at the start of the session, but they foresee retail media being used for other services and service providers for general advertisements within the retailer. So an example is the screens sold to someone who might repair a product that you might buy at a supermarket, or someone who would help, let's say, chop up your vegetables in the grocery section, and that sort of thing. Now, not a great example, but what I'm trying to get across is um, people or services that go hand in hand with the buys that you make in store. Now, um, do you see this within your customers? Have they started using it in this way at all, or is this a way that you think you might see your customers going in the future?
Yeah, we have, and in fact, I would even take it a step further than that, Venus. So, like some of our customers, for example, would open up their networks to allow financial institutions, insurance companies, automobile, telecoms. So these sort of any large organization that has mass appeal and maybe with a national geographical spread that are looking to engage with everyday consumers, the in-store network, which is part of the retail media network that we talk about, is certainly a channel that they can utilize. So I suppose the retailer has to make a decision here. Do they want to take the dollars from the advertising just from the FMCG brands that will be able to promote and increase sales for them? Also willing to take the dollars from the advertisers that have no direct increase in sales within their retail store, but they're still making money from advertising. And I think that's a decision that the retailer has to make. But from our vantage point, we would see that being the way how this is going. I mean, ultimately, this is a retail media network. It's a way that anybody who's willing to pay can engage with a consumer or a target audience. And if the retailers are going to make a net new revenue from that, I think the vast majority of them will be very much open to that there, because it's new money into their business without any effort on their side whatsoever. And I think just to touch on that point, so from the retailer's perspective, I think they'll be very open to that. From any of the advertisers, like there was a report just released, I think in the last few weeks from the Boston Consulting Group, and they had sort of five main points that retail media networks have to cover in order to make it interesting for advertisers. And including that was like the measurement, was the insights that you can give back, and the data. That was just three off the top of mind. And no matter who it is that's advertising, you can still have measurement back to them about the insights, the who was in the store. All of that can go back to the advertisers, and that access to first party data. When I talked earlier about that cookieless environment we're moving into and not being able to track across different apps, by having that channel inside the retail store where you do have access to first party data, I think that opens it up to many different types of advertisers.
Absolutely. And I'm assuming that the if your customer has geographical spread, you might be able to take learnings from one market and apply it into another market, which could actually give you a lot of leverage from the perspective of third party advertising as well, because there might be learnings that you may not have got from a specific market for that particular product or service or financial institution or any other
Yeah.
institution, but you might have seen the same behavior or similar behavior with different cohorts of consumers in other markets and apply those learnings here as long as it's relevant.
No, no. I mean, the insights piece, I think, is massively important to the success of retail media networks, and insights for both the retailer and indeed for the advertiser. So I think you're right. If you could do it by geography, I mean, we have very interesting post-campaign reports about how impactful the sales or the campaign was across different regions of the country. And even from the retailer's perspective, within the different store formats, so you might have a neighborhood store, you could have a store close to a highway, you could have a store in a business district or in a residential area. And the insights around how impactful the campaign was, even in the different store formats, is really interesting. Um, like we have the insights down to if an image is better to a video, you would expect the video to be better, but we're able to show you how much better does does the cost that it took for you to create that video version of the image make it viable, or is the image sufficiently good enough because the difference isn't quantifiable enough to pay for the video to be created? Um, Even down to the messaging on the actual advertisements itself, like the text that's used. Sometimes just the wording can have a huge impact on how it's received by the consumer. So we can run a lot of sort of A/B testing in certain stores. You could have the exact same creative with the same call or the same sort of product and the same price, if you like, the same promotion. But if you have the wording slightly different, it's amazing the different impact that it can have on the consumer, because this is all done primarily in a subliminal manner, Venus. So how we receive the messaging into our brain and how we cognitively then uh, have an action to go and purchase it is all predicated on what our brain has seen on the screen. And there's a huge amount of almost marketing psychology analysis in there to fully understand how best to engage with the consumers.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Because it's if you're in store and you're already looking at buying something, then when you see a particularly relevant ad, you find it very helpful. And then you get into a really positive frame of mind with regard to buying that specific product. And it just makes a lot of sense that the consumer would then go into a specific aisle and pick it up. And it sort of then gives a really good return on investment that way. And it's
Yeah,
direct.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, got it. I think that's pretty much it for now, Shamus. So, anything else that you would want to tell our listeners and viewers?
No, I think we've covered a lot of it there. I mean, the big thing right now is that across all of the markets that we operate in, like every retailer is now either in the process of creating a retail media network, or certainly they're asking the question, how do we create a retail media network? So it's probably one of the hottest topics that has emerged in retail technology for quite some time. I think the reason that it's so hot is because it has really, whilst we're at it, 6 or 7 years, it seems to have crept up very, very quickly, and just exploded. And I think with the likes of Walmart doing it and Tesco doing it and Woolworths in Australia and some of these massive retailers that's doing it globally, and when you see the financial clout and the financial um, dollars that they receive every year from the retail media networks, I think it's really all the retailers have now set up and take notice, which is fantastic for someone like us, because we have this platform that's ready to go. That should you want to do it, we can help you. And like we've talked about many different variations on how it can work. Do you focus purely on in-house? Do you focus on the advertising? Do you do a mix of either? Do you do programmatic and all of this? There's a lot in it. And I think it's important that as a retailer that you understand that this is a quite a complex arena, and that whatever platform, whether it's Intouch or in-house or whoever you end up going with, that it has the capability to serve all of the different areas of retail media network, from the anonymized personalization we talked about to the one-to-one personalization we mentioned. There's a lot that can be done with this here. So it's and I think what's really good is that the brands are also incredibly excited about this as well. So it's almost that thing, if you build it, they will come. If you build your retail media network, the brands they want to come. They want to spend on your networks. So for every day you don't install the network, it's a day, a week, a month, a year, where that's revenue that could be going into your business.
Oh, that's an interesting point because we read that a lot of retailers are actually subsidizing prices for consumers during this time by using revenues from their retail media sales, which
Yeah,
just totally makes
exactly.
sense. So,
Yeah, for sure.
great. So, how can our viewers or listeners contact you?
Yeah, so I suppose intouch.com is the website. My email address is Seamus, that's Seamus at intouch.com. Or indeed, if you just go onto our website, there's a contact us version there as well. If anyone has any interest about what we do, or even about the business, about the whole retail media sector, we're more than happy to discuss that with anybody, because it's a really exciting field to be in. There has been enormous growth, and there will continue to be enormous growth. And we want to, see ourselves as a partner for anyone who's interested in this. And we'd love to assist with you with learning more about what we do.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for your time, Seamus. Super appreciate it.
Thank you, Vina. Thank you for inviting me.
If you have any questions or comments about Intouch, contact Seamus on SEAMUS at intouch.com. That is SEAMUS, Seamus at intouch, INTOUCH.com. Or you can go to their website, www.intouch.com. If you have any questions or comments about retail media networks and how these work, leave a comment here if you're watching on YouTube, and we'll get back to you. If you are listening to this on Apple or Spotify, email me on veena@salespeed.co with any questions. Thank you for listening.